In the stillness of the night, when the noise of the world begins to fade, we are given a rare chance to listen, to truly listen, to ourselves. Amid the chaos of daily life, there are moments when we quietly wonder, what is the true meaning of happiness? Why do we humans endlessly search for something lasting, when everything around us is constantly changing? And among countless paths that promise peace, is there one that truly leads to liberation from all suffering? Buddhism emerges as a gentle response to those very questions. Rather than being a religion rooted in blind faith, Buddhism is a path of practice, mindfulness, and personal experience. Over 2,500 years ago in the ancient land of India, a young prince made a remarkable decision. He renounced all his wealth, power, and royal status to seek the truth. His name was Siddhartha Gautama. Born into luxury and privilege, Prince Siddhartha possessed everything most people could ever desire: a magnificent palace, a beautiful wife, a beloved son. Yet deep within he sensed that all these external pleasures were fleeting. He saw illness, aging, and death, realities that no one could escape. These profound realizations stirred something within him. He chose to leave behind the golden palace, don the simple robes of a wandering monk, and set out on a journey to discover the path to liberation from suffering. For 6 long years, Siddhartha endured harsh austerities in pursuit of enlightenment. He starved himself, braved the freezing cold and unbearable hunger, but the answers remained elusive. It was only when he sat beneath the Bodhi tree, letting go of all striving, anchoring himself in the breath and being fully present in each moment, that the light of awakening arose within him. He realized that suffering does not come from the world outside, it arises from the mind itself. And from that same mind, liberation can also be found. From that moment on, Siddhartha became the Buddha, the awakened one. No longer a prince, he became a great teacher who would guide millions along the path of awakening. Not through miracles or blind belief, but through mindfulness, personal insight, and the practice of living consciously in every moment of life. After attaining enlightenment beneath the Bodhi tree, the Buddha began his journey of sharing the truth he had discovered. This journey spanned 45 years, during which he delivered countless teachings on how to overcome suffering and find inner peace and awakening. His teachings were not just abstract theories, they were practical paths, clearly laid out for anyone to follow, regardless of their social status or background. Buddhism began in a small region of ancient India, but its influence gradually spread across Asia and eventually to the entire world. Initially, the Buddhist teachings were passed down orally from one generation to the next. It wasn't until several centuries after his passing into nirvana that these teachings were written down in the Pali and Sanskrit canons. Buddhism is not a religion of complex rituals or blind devotion. It is a method, a way of introspection, of contemplation, of freeing oneself from the entanglements of life. As the Buddha once said, "I am merely a finger pointing to the path. Liberation lies within yourselves." This means that no one else can liberate us. There are no miracles or divine beings who can walk the path for us. As Buddhism spread, it branched into many traditions shaped by the cultures and beliefs of different regions. In East Asia, Zen Buddhism emerged with its emphasis on mindfulness in everyday life. In Tibet, Vajrayana developed with its unique spiritual practices. Though the forms may differ, the essence remains unchanged: liberation from suffering, the return to inner peace beyond the turbulence of the world. Buddhism is not just about individual enlightenment, it is also a path of compassion and deep empathy for all living beings. The Buddha taught that when compassion expands, the human mind becomes lighter, like a leaf floating down a river, no longer clinging, no longer burdened. Throughout his 45 years of teaching, the Buddha traveled through villages and cities, offering guidance to all who came, rich or poor, noble or servant. Whoever sought him was heard, was taught. His simplicity, his boundless compassion, and his wisdom touched countless hearts, guiding them beyond the suffering of everyday life. At the age of 80, the Buddha passed into final nirvana beneath the canopy of sala trees. Before leaving this world, he gave his disciples a final teaching: be a lamp unto yourselves. Rely only on yourselves. Do not depend on anyone else. These words echo across the centuries, a guiding light for millions seeking the path to awakening. Buddhism is not a blind faith, it is the path of awareness and understanding. It calls for deep reflection, to see into the very nature of reality, and to let go of all attachments, desires, and aversions. Only when the mind becomes clear, calm, like a gentle stream, can one truly walk the path of liberation the Buddha once walked. Buddhism is more than the story of the Buddha's enlightenment or his mission. It is a living tradition full of profound teachings that can be applied to daily life. These teachings help people not only to understand the nature of suffering but also to show a clear path toward overcoming it and finding inner tranquility. Among the Buddhist teachings, the Four Noble Truths form the core foundation, the very first stepping stones on the path to enlightenment. The Buddha taught that life is inherently accompanied by suffering. This is the first noble truth, known as dukkha. Suffering is not only physical or emotional pain, but also the dissatisfaction that comes from life's impermanence and unpredictability. From birth to aging, from illness to death, these are all manifestations of suffering. But Buddhism does not stop at recognizing suffering, it delves deeper into why we suffer. This is the second noble truth, samudaya, the origin of suffering. According to the Buddha, the root of all suffering lies in craving, aversion, and ignorance. Humans constantly desire to possess and control things, to make the world conform to their will. But since all things are impermanent, this clinging only leads to more pain. Once we understand the cause of suffering, Buddhism opens the way to freedom. This is the third noble truth, nirodha, the cessation of suffering. It is the complete extinguishing of desire, anger, and delusion, a liberation from the mental and emotional chains of the material world. The Buddha described this state as nirvana, a place beyond birth and death, beyond fear, beyond sorrow. The path to liberation is known as the fourth noble truth, the Noble Eightfold Path. This is a practical guide consisting of 8 interconnected practices that purify the mind, cultivate wisdom, and guide one to right action. The Eightfold Path includes right view, understanding the truth; right thought, thinking in a wholesome, compassionate way; right speech, speaking truthfully and kindly; right action, acting ethically and non-harmfully; right livelihood, earning a living without harming others; right effort, maintaining wholesome mental states; right mindfulness, being aware of the present moment; and right concentration, developing deep mental focus and clarity. The Buddha once said that walking this path is like crossing a sturdy bridge. It leads from the shore of suffering to the other side, where lasting peace and freedom await. There is no need to abandon the world or leave behind family and society. What's needed is the purification of the mind and the release of attachments. By doing so, one can taste the essence of nirvana even within the midst of daily life. Buddhism does not bind people to rigid beliefs, nor does it demand blind faith in miracles or supernatural powers. Instead, the Buddha encouraged his followers to examine and experience his teachings for themselves. In the Kalama Sutta he said, "Do not believe something just because it is repeated by many. Do not believe something just because it is written in sacred texts. Do not believe something simply because it has been passed down for generations. Believe it only when you have tested it for yourself and found it to be true, when it leads to peace and happiness." It is this intellectual and spiritual freedom that makes Buddhism feel open and welcoming. People come to the Buddha's teachings not out of fear, but from a sincere desire to cleanse their hearts and rediscover a sense of peace in a turbulent world. Buddhism also places great emphasis on compassion and wisdom. Compassion, metta, is unconditional love, the wish for all beings to be happy. Wisdom, panna, is a deep understanding of the nature of things. It is the inner light that helps us navigate the darkness of ignorance and suffering. The Buddha taught that wisdom and compassion must grow together. Without wisdom, compassion may be misguided. Without compassion, wisdom becomes cold and disconnected. Buddhism is not just philosophy, it's a call to action. Not just outer deeds of kindness but also inner transformation. It's the mindfulness of each breath, the awareness in every step. From a Buddhist perspective, life is not merely something to get through. It is a collection of precious moments, each one worthy of presence, reflection, and care. Buddhism, since the very first steps of the Buddha over 2,500 years ago in India, has spread far and wide, not through military power or political influence, but through wisdom, compassion, and the transformation of the human heart. When Buddhism left India, it adapted and evolved to harmonize with the cultures and beliefs of each land it touched. From this, 3 main branches emerged: Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. Though each carries its own unique flavor and method of practice, all remain grounded in the Buddha's core teachings, the path toward awakening and liberation. Theravada, often referred to as the teaching of the elders, is predominant in Southeast Asian countries such as Thailand, Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, and Sri Lanka. It preserves much of the original teachings and emphasizes personal meditation, ethical discipline, and individual realization. The image of saffron-robed monks walking barefoot in the morning alms round is not just a cultural tradition. It is a symbol of simplicity, renunciation, and the path toward inner purity. Mahayana, or the Great Vehicle, flourished in countries like China, Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. Unlike the individual focus of Theravada, Mahayana expands enlightenment to be a goal not only for oneself but for all beings. The ideal of the Bodhisattva was born: enlightened beings who choose to remain in this world to help others awaken. The image of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, listening to the cries of the world, is a vivid representation of Mahayana's boundless love. Vajrayana, known as the Diamond Vehicle, developed strongly in Tibet and Mongolia. It blends deep meditative practices, mantras, and sacred rituals to bring about awakening, often with the aspiration to attain enlightenment within a single lifetime. The intricate mandalas, ritual instruments, and the guidance of enlightened teachers, lamas, have become hallmarks of Tibetan Buddhism. Each path has its own beauty, but the destination is the same: freedom from suffering and the cycle of birth and death. In many Buddhist scriptures, the Dharma is likened to a raft used to cross a river. The Buddha once said, "My teachings are like a raft to cross the river of suffering. Once you've reached the other shore, you do not need to carry the raft on your back." This reminds us that the teachings are tools, not dogmas, to help us awaken, not to cling to or worship blindly. Buddhism does not encourage blind faith or rigid belief. The Buddha emphasized direct experience and inner realization. In the Kalama Sutta he taught, "Do not believe something just because someone tells you. Do not believe it simply because it has been passed down for generations. Do not believe it just because it is written in scriptures. Believe it only when you have experienced it yourself and found it to lead to peace and well-being." This spirit of openness and inquiry has allowed Buddhism to flourish naturally, integrating with cultures while preserving its essence. It invites people not through fear or promise of reward, but by appealing to their deep desire for peace and understanding. Throughout history's storms, Buddhism has endured, continuing to shine as a light for millions across the globe. From ancient temples in China, golden pagodas in Thailand, to serene monasteries nestled in the Himalayas, Buddhism remains a living symbol of peace and mindfulness. Today, Buddhism is not only seen as a religion but also embraced as a psychological and spiritual practice. Techniques like meditation and mindfulness have been scientifically proven to reduce stress, improve mental health, and foster inner calm. In the modern world, full of speed, noise, and pressure, many in the West have turned to Buddhism not for miracles or blessings, but for its practicality, its grounding presence, and its profound understanding of the human mind. The spread of Buddhism is not merely geographical. It is a journey into hearts and ways of living. People come to Buddhism not to seek magic but to awaken. Not to be saved but to understand. Not to escape life but to embrace it, fully, wisely, and compassionately. Buddhism is not merely a religion. It is a spiritual path, a method of practice to be free from suffering and attain enlightenment. To better understand Buddhism, we need to explore the core teachings that the Buddha expounded throughout his 45 years of teaching. These teachings are not only the solid foundation of all Buddhist traditions but also a compass for millions around the world who seek peace and serenity in their hearts. Among these fundamental teachings, the Four Noble Truths are considered the precious gem that opens the door to all understanding of Buddhism. After attaining enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, the Buddha delivered his first sermon at the Deer Park in Sarnath to 5 of his fellow ascetics. There, he taught the Four Noble Truths as the foundational truth about human suffering and the path to liberation. The first noble truth is dukkha: suffering exists in life. It is an undeniable reality. Humans are born, grow old, fall ill, and die. These are all forms of suffering. It is not only physical pain, but also mental unease, loss, separation, and unfulfilled expectations. Sometimes, even when we have everything we want, a subtle emptiness still lingers. The Buddha pointed out that suffering is the nature of life, and only when we accept this can we begin to find a way to overcome it. The second noble truth is samadaya, the cause of suffering. According to the Buddha, suffering does not arise randomly. It originates from craving, tanha, attachment, and ignorance. Craving drives us to desire endlessly, attachment keeps us clinging to what we love, and ignorance blinds us to the truth of impermanence. We chase after endless desires, hoping for stability in things that are inherently unstable, leading to disappointment and pain. The third noble truth is nirodha, the cessation of suffering. The Buddha affirmed that when the root causes of suffering are eliminated, liberation will arise. It is not about rejecting life or escaping reality, but about letting go of attachment and freeing ourselves from craving and ignorance. When the mind is no longer bound by desires and clinging, peace will naturally emerge. This is nirvana, the ultimate stillness that the Buddha realized. The fourth noble truth is Magga, the path leading to the cessation of suffering. The Buddha outlined the Noble Eightfold Path, a practical roadmap of 8 elements guiding one toward liberation from suffering and toward enlightenment. The path includes right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. The Noble Eightfold Path is not a linear sequence but an interconnected circle, where each element supports the others. As we develop mindfulness, we better understand right view. As we engage in right action, the mind becomes lighter, making it easier to attain right concentration. Each element is a necessary practice to purify the mind and lead toward ultimate liberation. When the Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths, he did not only present a philosophy but also a practical method. This makes his teaching not just theoretical but highly applicable to everyday life. From recognizing suffering, understanding its causes, seeking to overcome it, and practicing the correct path, Buddhism becomes a personal journey, a self-exploration toward freedom. A true practitioner does not stop at listening and understanding but must enter the path of practice to feel the transformation from within. Like someone wanting to cross a river, it's not enough to gaze at the raft. One must step onto it, paddle, and make the journey to reach the other shore. The Four Noble Truths are the map, but the journey to liberation requires personal effort. Buddhism does not end at philosophical knowledge but encourages direct experience. Only through practice, through facing oneself, can we truly see the roots of suffering, understand the nature of impermanence and non-self. From there, we begin the process of inner transformation, freeing ourselves from worldly entanglements and touching the deep peace and stillness within. Impermanence, non-self, and emptiness. These 3 foundational teachings of Buddhism not only help us deeply understand the nature of life, but also open the path to liberation from suffering, awakening, and inner peace. These are not just profound philosophical ideas. They are living practices that guide each person across the ocean of suffering to the shore of tranquility. Impermanence, anicca, is the first truth the Buddha taught about the nature of all things. Impermanence means that everything in the universe is constantly changing. Nothing is permanent or eternal. From the morning dew on a leaf, to a flower that blooms and then fades, to the stars shimmering in the sky, everything follows the cycle of arising, existing, changing, and disappearing. The human body is no exception, from birth to growth, aging, and eventually dissolution. We often mistake what we have as permanent, believing that love, possessions, or even our bodies will last forever. But the truth is, everything changes moment by moment. A flower in full bloom in the morning may begin to wilt by the afternoon. A sudden rain may cool the earth, but it too will pass, making way for the sunlight to return through the branches. When we understand impermanence, we learn to accept change, let go of clinging, and cherish the present moment. There's a story about a famous Zen master. When asked the secret to his peace, he simply smiled and said, "I treat everything as if I'm seeing it for the last time. Every falling leaf, every breeze that brushes past is a miracle, because we can never be sure we'll experience it again." With a deep awareness of impermanence, our minds become lighter, no longer bound by what is lost or fearful of what has yet to come. Non-self, anatta, is the next truth the Buddha revealed. Non-self means there is no fixed or unchanging I. We usually identify ourselves through our bodies, thoughts, and emotions. We say, "I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm angry," but do we ever truly ask what this I is? Buddhism teaches that the self we believe to be real is actually a combination of 5 aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, each of which is constantly changing. Our body changes with time, emotions shift with circumstances, and thoughts evolve through experience. When anger passes, are we still the person who was just enraged? When joy fades, are we still the one who was smiling? Everything is a temporary combination. There is no unchanging self. A Zen master once asked his student, "When you say, 'I,' show me what that I is." The student pointed to his body. The master shook his head and said, "If this body is you, then if you lose a finger, are you still you?" The student fell silent, realizing that the I he had always clung to was merely an illusion. When we understand non-self, we begin to release our attachment to identity. We no longer feel deeply hurt by others' words or actions. Without a rigid I to defend, anger, jealousy, and pride start to dissolve. Compassion and wisdom naturally arise, helping us see the interconnectedness between ourselves and others. No more division, no more separation. Emptiness, sunyata, is the extension of non-self, an even deeper realization that all phenomena, all things have no inherent existence, no fixed essence. Emptiness doesn't mean nothing exists, but rather, nothing exists independently. Everything arises in dependence on causes and conditions, constantly interacting and transforming. A blooming flower does not exist on its own. It needs soil, water, sunlight, air, and time. Without any one of these, the flower cannot exist. Likewise, we human beings are the result of countless conditions, born from our parents, shaped by our environment, molded by our experiences. Nothing stands alone. Nothing has a permanent, independent essence outside of the web of interbeing. The Buddha once illustrated emptiness through the image of a clay pot. When we see the pot, we notice its shape, color, and material. But if we smash it, we are left with only shards. So what was the pot? Was it the shape? The material? Or just a temporary form made of clay, water, and the potter's hand? The pot didn't exist independently, and it didn't disappear into nothing. It was simply a conditioned manifestation. When we truly understand emptiness, all our attachments, to possessions, to reputation, to control, begin to dissolve. We see that everything is a temporary assembly of causes and conditions. There is nothing eternal to cling to, nothing solid to fight over. Meditation in Buddhist teachings is not merely a method to attain inner peace. It is the path to enlightenment, the way to truly understand the impermanent and selfless nature of all phenomena. Meditation is a return to oneself, a quiet observation of the mind, an awareness of the breath, and a gentle release of the mental afflictions that bind us to the endless cycle of rebirth. In Buddhism, meditation is generally divided into two main branches: samatha, calm abiding, and vipassana, insight. Each serves a distinct purpose, but both aim to purify the mind, free it from attachments, and lead to awakening. Samatha meditation, the art of calming the mind. Samatha is the practice of stillness and concentration. In this form of meditation, the practitioner focuses on a single object, often the breath or a mantra, to calm the mind and eliminate mental distractions. As the mind becomes quiet, like a still lake undisturbed by wind, we begin to see our thoughts, emotions, and desires with greater clarity and honesty. There is a famous story of a meditation master and his disciple. The disciple asked, "Master, how can I make my mind still, like the calm surface of a lake in autumn, undisturbed by the storms of life?" The master smiled and led the disciple to a stream. He scooped up a handful of mud and tossed it into the water. The stream instantly became cloudy, its depths obscured. Then he told the disciple to sit and wait. After a while, the mud settled, the water cleared, and the stones at the bottom became visible. The master said, "Your mind is like this. If you let it chase after distractions, it becomes clouded like muddy water. But if you sit still, breathe, and allow everything to settle naturally, your mind becomes clear, calm, and full of understanding." In samatha, the goal is not to suppress thoughts or emotions, but to observe and gently let them go. Through this sustained focus, the mind becomes resilient and stable, less likely to be shaken by the chaos of the world. Vipassana meditation, seeing things as they truly are. Vipassana, on the other hand, is the practice of insight, of looking deeply into the nature of things. While samatha quiets the mind, vipassana helps it to see clearly the truths of impermanence, non-self, and suffering. This practice does not merely observe the surface. It investigates the inner workings of consciousness. When practicing vipassana, the meditator watches the arising and passing of emotions, thoughts, and sensations. When a thought arises, they simply recognize, "This is a thought." When an emotion appears, they acknowledge, "This is a feeling." They do not chase it, do not suppress it, they simply witness it come and go. It's like watching a candle flame flicker in the dark. At first glance it seems still. But if you look closely, you'll see the flame is never the same. It dances, sways, rises and falls with each moment. The mind is like that, ever-changing, never fixed. Realizing this, we begin to let go of clinging to temporary feelings and thoughts. We no longer identify with every joy or sorrow, and we find a deeper peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. The transformation of the mind. As one continues to meditate, the mind slowly transforms. Mental afflictions such as delusion, anger, and desire begin to fade. In their place arise clarity, compassion, and inner strength. The Buddha once said the human mind is like a garden. If we tend to it with care, planting wholesome seeds, flowers of wisdom and love will bloom. But if we leave it unattended, overrun by greed, hatred, and ignorance, only thorns and weeds will grow. This transformation takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. Like a patient farmer who waters and cares for their crops day after day, a meditator must be diligent and unwavering to slowly transform the layers of the mind. Once the mind is purified, we begin to see life differently. The things that once brought suffering and sorrow now seem lighter. We realize that all things are temporary, that there is nothing we need to hold on to, and nothing we need to push away. This awakening allows us to walk through life with greater ease, undisturbed by change and unshackled by craving or aversion, lighting the way for others. When someone truly understands and experiences meditation, they not only find peace for themselves, they become a beacon of calm for others. Their presence alone brings comfort, their words carry clarity, and their actions reflect compassion. They become a light in the darkness, guiding others who are still lost in pain and confusion. The Noble Eightfold Path, also known as the Eightfold Path, is the guiding principle in the teachings of the Buddha that leads people to escape suffering and attain enlightenment. It is the middle way, avoiding two extremes. One is excessive indulgence in sensual pleasures, and the other is extreme asceticism. The Buddha taught that to be liberated from the cycle of birth and death, samsara, one must walk on these 8 right paths, each step being a transformation of the mind, a gradual awakening. The Noble Eightfold Path consists of 8 factors, grouped into 3 major categories: morality, sila, concentration, samadhi, and wisdom, panna. 1. Right view, samadhi, correct understanding. Right view is the proper understanding of the nature of life, impermanence, suffering, and non-self. When seeing all things and phenomena through the lens of right view, we recognize that everything changes and nothing is permanent. By understanding cause and effect, we realize that every action, word, and thought leaves an imprint, creating good or bad results in the future. A Buddhist story tells of a wealthy merchant who had accumulated wealth throughout his life but was always anxious and fearful of losing it. When he met the Buddha, he asked, "How can I no longer be afraid when my wealth disappears?" The Buddha smiled and replied, "If you understand that wealth is only temporary and losing it is natural, then you will no longer fear. Attachment itself is the root of suffering." Through right view, the merchant realized this truth and lived more peacefully, no longer bound by obsession with material things. 2. Right intention, sammasakappa, correct thought. Right intention is wholesome, compassionate thinking, free from hatred and selfishness. When our mind is directed toward goodness, not entangled in greed, anger, or ignorance, our heart becomes light and peaceful. Right intention helps us let go of negative thoughts, replacing them with tolerance and loving kindness toward all beings. Once, the Buddha told the story of a bird hunter. Every day the hunter set nets to catch small birds. One day he met the Buddha and heard about right intention. His mind awakened, realizing the suffering he had caused these small creatures. From then on, he gave up hunting and cared for injured birds, living a peaceful and content life. 3. Right speech, samavaka, correct speech. Right speech is sincere and compassionate speech. It means not lying, not speaking harshly, not gossiping or dividing people, and not engaging in useless chatter. Correct speech connects people and brings harmony and joy to all. Once, when the Buddha passed by a village, he saw that the villagers often quarreled, with harsh words full of hatred. He stopped and told a story about a kind farmer whose every word brought warmth to those around him. That farmer lived to be 100 years old and was loved and respected by everyone. The Buddha taught, "Speech is like a seed. If we sow good seeds, we will reap the fruits of joy. If we sow harmful seeds, we will suffer." 4. Right action, sammakamanta, correct action. Right action is acting rightly, avoiding harming others and the environment. Practitioners of right action do not kill, steal, commit sexual misconduct, and live ethically and honestly. In a small village there was a woodcutter who lived simply and never harmed any living beings. Whenever he cut wood, he carefully avoided injuring young branches, nests, or small animals. His life was simple but peaceful and happy. The villagers respected him and often sought to learn his way of peaceful and compassionate living. 5. Right livelihood, sammajiva, correct livelihood. Right livelihood is earning a living honestly, without engaging in trades that harm others or the environment. The Buddha advised practitioners to avoid professions involving killing, selling weapons, poisons, or deception. A righteous livelihood brings peace and serenity both to the individual and the community. There was a merchant trading food who always prioritized integrity, never mixing poor quality goods for profit. People trusted him and he lived a peaceful life, without fear or regret about his actions. The Buddha said, "Those who live with right livelihood, though poor, have peaceful hearts. Those who engage in wrong livelihood, though rich, live in fear and anxiety." 6. Right effort, samavayama, correct effort. Right effort is the proper, tireless effort to purify the mind and develop wholesome qualities. The Buddha taught that to overcome suffering, one must cultivate willpower and perseverance on the spiritual path. Right effort is not forcing or overexerting but is persistence with determination, gradually progressing toward goodness. The story of Angulimala, a notorious murderer in the Buddhist time, clearly illustrates transformation through right effort. Angulimala once spread terror everywhere, but after meeting the Buddha, he awakened and renounced all evil deeds. Through unceasing right effort, Angulimala became a saintly monk, living a pure life and helping many. From a ruthless killer, he completely transformed, becoming a symbol of the power of genuine effort. Right effort involves 4 tasks. Preventing unarisen evil states from arising. Abandoning evil states that have already arisen. Developing good states that have not yet arisen. Maintaining and increasing good states that have arisen. Right effort is like a steady flame that never goes out, warming the heart and lighting the path to enlightenment. Seven. Right mindfulness, samasati, correct mindfulness. Right mindfulness is being fully aware of every thought, word, and deed. A mindful person lives in the present, not haunted by the past or anxious about the future. When our mind is steady in the present moment, we see clearly all things and phenomena, deeply understanding their nature. Once, the Buddha told a story about a poor farmer who tilled a small field every day. Although his life was hard, he worked with gratitude and mindfulness. Every furrow he made was done with attention, never letting his thoughts wander. When eating, he savored each grain of rice. When resting, he listened to the wind and birdsong around him. His life was simple yet full of peace and happiness. The Buddha said, "Those who live with right mindfulness will not be swept away by the flow of suffering. Like a sturdy mountain in a storm, the mindful mind remains unmoved by life's waves." Right mindfulness is not only meditation but also attentiveness in every daily activity. Walking, standing, lying down, sitting, eating, speaking, or working. Every moment is a practice, a step toward awakening. 8. Right concentration, samasamadhi, correct concentration. Right concentration is deep, steady mental focus on a meditation object, allowing the mind to become calm and clear. When the mind reaches tranquility, no longer disturbed by greed, hatred, or delusion, true wisdom arises. The Buddha once told of Mahakassapa, one of his foremost disciples. Mahakassapa was famous for his deep meditation ability, able to sit in meditation for hours without distraction. It is said that when Mahakassapa meditated under an ancient tree, even storms and noise could not shake his mind. This calmness helped him see through all phenomena and overcome the world's suffering. Right concentration is the foundation of enlightenment, the gateway to boundless wisdom. When the mind is perfectly focused, all suffering and defilements dissolve, leaving only peace and bliss. Conclusion: the path to liberation from suffering. The Noble Eightfold Path is not only the way to escape suffering but also a lifestyle that leads to peace and enlightenment. These 8 factors are not separate steps but interwoven and supportive of one another. When we develop right view, we will have right intention. When we speak rightly, we will act rightly. When we live with honest livelihood, it is easier to strive diligently on the path. And when our mind is always mindful, deep concentration naturally follows. Like a gentle river flowing toward the vast ocean, the Noble Eightfold Path is the way for every soul to return to its pure source, where suffering no longer exists, where attachment fades and only boundless peace remains. Enlightenment, the breakthrough beyond suffering. Enlightenment is not a distant, unreachable state. It is a profound awareness of life's reality, a waking up from delusion to see clearly the true nature of all phenomena. The Buddha, after many years of austerity and deep meditation, attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, where he saw the truth of birth, aging, sickness, death, and the path to end suffering. Enlightenment is the letting go of all illusions and attachments, to the self, to desires, anger, and ignorance. When enlightened, the soul becomes free and light, like drifting clouds, no longer bound by trivial matters, only remaining infinite peace. A famous story in the scriptures tells of Ananda, the Buddha's devoted disciple. Although he learned much, Ananda did not truly grasp the deep meaning of enlightenment until the Buddha taught him. Enlightenment is seeing things as they are, neither adding nor subtracting. It is a true perception, untouched by emotions or thoughts. Enlightenment is not the end of a journey but the beginning of a new life, a life of peace and compassion. Compassion, the heart of Buddhism. On the path of awakening, compassion is the guiding light for every step. Compassion is not just sympathy for others but a deep understanding that all beings desire happiness and wish to avoid suffering. The Buddha taught that when we open our hearts with compassion, we heal not only others but also ourselves. Compassion helps us perceive the suffering of others without judgment or anger, but with sincere empathy. There is a story about an old meditation master who lived alone deep in the forest. One day he found a wounded stray dog. Instead of walking away, he cared for it daily with love and patience. The dog gradually recovered and became a close companion, symbolizing the power of compassion, the ability to transform every circumstance and heal the deepest wounds. Peace in the present moment. Buddhism always reminds us that happiness is not in the past or future but in fully being present in the here and now. When we live with mindful awareness, we feel the breath, the sounds around us, and every heartbeat. Living in the present also means letting go of regrets about the past and not worrying about the future. This is a great freedom, helping us not to be trapped by invisible fears or suffering. Like a flowing river, if we cling to the water of past or future, the flow is interrupted and becomes murky. Each gentle breath is a miracle. Each moment of mindfulness is an opportunity for the soul to rest and renew. This peace is the most precious gift Buddhism offers to those who listen and experience it. The journey home. Buddhism can be seen as a journey back home, back to the truest nature of ourselves, a place without anger, without suffering, only endless calm and love. No matter how many storms life brings, no matter how chaotic the mind may become, each person can find refuge within themselves. That is the peaceful inner place where we do not need to run away or search outside. In the light of wisdom and compassion, all barriers and sufferings gradually dissolve, opening a vast horizon where the soul is liberated and at ease. Closing words, invitation to walk together. The journey of exploring Buddhism is not only an intellectual trip but also a soulful journey, bringing peace and deep rest to weary hearts. I hope these words gently guide you towards stillness, so each night you can let go of worries and embrace complete peace. If you find this helpful, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to join us for upcoming videos, where we will explore more profound teachings and inspiring stories from Buddhism. Wishing you peace, steadiness, and deep, restful sleep.